increasing when the Fed moratorium is lifted soon? That's a really, really good question. I know there's some other stuff going on right now. There's some legislation in Hawaii that's kind of making its way. I don't know where it's at, Scott. Maybe you can kind of, if any of you have some info on it, but they're doing something to kind of say that something to the effect of that landlords. I forgot what it is. Anyway, okay. Anyway, let's just take the question. Do you foresee inventory increasing when the Fed so right now there's a moratorium on evictions and things of that nature. Right, it's been a moratorium. When it gets lifted, what's going to happen? So, Scott, why don't you kind of start us out with that, and then we'll see anybody else who wants to add into that. Go ahead, Scott.
So, not anytime soon. It would be the first answer, and the second part of that would be I think it's going to be insignificant. I mean, I mentioned this last show. I've talked with the banks. I've talked with the people that I know at the banks. We're essentially talking about people who are in trouble with their mortgage or in the forbearance program, and legitimately in the forbearance program, because there's plenty of people that got into that without being in trouble. The amount of people that would be in there are not that significant. And even with there's so much regulation in place that the banks aren't going to immediately go and take somebody's home. They're going to try to work with someone. The government's going to, the regulations are going to force them to. The government's going to give the banks incentive to work with the people, so that even if inventory was to come out, it's going to get dragged out over probably years. So therefore, I think it's going to be insignificant, be an insignificant change to what's going on in the marketplace. If we're getting inventory, I don't think it's going to be coming from that as much as it's going to be coming from somewhere else, which would be affordability, lack of affordability, and people finally deciding to move.
Interesting. Thanks, Scott. Dylan, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just pulling up some data. So the number of people who are in forbearance has already gone down by 50%, right? So the people who were having trouble have either caught up or gotten current with their current mortgage. So that number continues to fall. We've been seeing that over the last couple of months. And so there definitely will be some people at the end who, don't catch up. But the reality is, if you bought your house in the last 10 years, if you did, if aside from like 2006 to 05 to 07, almost guaranteed, unless you did some crazy refinancing, you have equity in your home. So there will be some increased inventory on the folks that don't necessarily catch up, but it's not going to be through a foreclosure process. Those folks will have equity in their homes, and even though they're behind, it'll most likely be a regular sale where they sell, pay off their mortgage, and then still walk away with some equity. So there won't be a flood of foreclosures like we saw after the last bubble, just because people have equity in their homes. And that was the difference back in the last bubble, was people were buying with zero down. And then when the market dipped, people were underwater, and it was a very different dynamic. So at this point, you've had a lot of appreciation. If you bought in the last 5 to 10 years, you definitely have a significant amount of equity in your home right now.
So that's going to be the interesting question now, as we've touched on this earlier, which is, it's not the bubble like the last one was. And the question is, what kind of a bubble is it? And I guess we're only going to find out after the bubble pops. Heidi, is there anything you'd like to add to this about the inventory, the moratoriums, anything that you're catching? You mentioned that law about rentals, et cetera. Is there anything that you want to add to this?
I don't see a big flood of inventory to the market, but more inventory would be great. We need more inventory right now to return to a more balanced market, so that could be positive. I see eventually more listings coming to the market, more because owners want to take advantage of the appreciation and sell because it's a good time for them, not necessarily because they're forced to. Unfortunately, I think it is going to be a difficult time for renters if their leases are not renewed and they're looking for new rentals. The rental market's always pretty tight on Maui, and it's really very limited right now.
And with the higher price real estate, that's going to go up significantly. So here's what's interesting to me is going to be I guess the question that comes to my mind is, with the prices going so high, you would think that would bring more inventory on the market, like you said, Heidi, right? So there'd be more people who'd want to sell their home. And so why aren't they selling it? Either they can't, or they're waiting, or they don't want to. I don't know what's gonna crack it loose. Scott, do you have any idea of kind of what's gonna crack this thing loose?
Not crack it loose. I mean, I think it's a combination of all those things you were saying. I think there's a real element that I know people staying in their house right now, and I think this is due to COVID. We all got stuck in place, or we stayed in place, and there's this kind of resistance to moving now. There's also the other element of where the heck do I go? If I sell here and this is my primary residence and I need to buy another place, great on the sell side. Now I got to enter this crazy market. Can I get a home? And there's a little bit of a fear factor there from people who don't want to be left without a property to be able to buy.
Oh, that's a really, really good point, right? Because I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, and that's a really good. It's like, yeah, okay, we could sell the house now and get whatever, get more than we've ever gotten for it. But then what? All right,
Yeah.
right? Can I go buy that other house? Maybe not. Maybe I won't find it, and God
And how
knows
do you
what's going to happen.
transition?
How do I
if you're
transition?
selling that house,
Exactly.
you can get into escrow, but you're not getting into escrow on the buy with a contingent there. You've pretty much got to have a transition place to go to, or a rent back. There's got to be some creative stuff that you got to do to make
you've got to jump out. You've got to jump out of the market basically, and hope you can kind of jump back into it and find something that you like. And that's too much of a risk. So I'm going to hold it, and that's that. So let's see here. So Jeremy.